I think too that, one of the things I was thinking about is, and we've come through some of this, getting through February and March and even the first week or two of April. But what if, things go worse again and vaccines don't come as quickly as we think, or there's a spike someplace and someone says, hey, I'm thinking about going to cash. I need to go to cash. Um, let's move to cash. What are your thoughts there as far as what advice maybe would you give as far as should I go to cash? Should I not go to cash?
Yeah, Scott, I think that's a good question because we all have that feeling in our stomach when things go down, right? That makes
Yeah.
us a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
And I think in those kind of times, and by the way, to the point of whether we'll go down again, my crystal ball's in the office, but right now I can't get in the office. So I'm going to have to, I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen.
That's right.
But at any rate, I think the best thing we can do is look at history and look at what we know. Historically, these types of pandemics have been short-lived, and stock markets tend to bounce back in relative short order. In the past, you've seen what they call V-shape recoveries, in the sense that you see a swift decline followed by a robust recovery. Now, just because that's happened in the past does not guarantee that we'll see that in this case. But as Mark Twain once said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. So I think there's a reasonable chance that we can use as a baseline for what we might see here. And maybe it's a little bit more prolonged than that. But again, it gives us some guidance, but no assurances as to what we're going to see. The other adage I heard long ago, but I've never forgotten, is that the stock market is like taking the escalator up and the elevator down, which means when we go up, we generally go up slowly over time, but when we fall fast.
Yeah.
And I think personally, look, we all have emotions with our own money, right?
Right.
And that helps me remember that when the market falls, this is normal, and when it falls fast, this is what's gonna happen when it does that.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of mentality helps me maintain a right long-term focus. Another fact I would share with you is that in the past 20 years, six of the 10 best days of the past 20 years have been around within 2 weeks of the worst days of the market. And so it's important to remind investors that if they want to try and jump out when the times are bad, they risk missing some of the best days. And certainly this recovery has shown that. We bottomed in the market on March 23rd, and March 24th brought us an 11% up day in the Dow, which was the best day in the Dow since the Great Depression. So the best day in 87 years. And then the week before Easter was actually in the S&P was the best week since 1974. And so I think it's important to remember that if you try and time the market, you risk missing the best days in the market. I'd also remind people when it comes to feeling nervous, the dangers of trying to swerve and go to cash. The analogy I've always used is, you're driving down the road and a deer darts in front of your car, right? Your first inclination is to what, right?
To swerve. Yeah.
To swerve, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you go back to driving class, if you can remember that long, I have a hard time myself. They tell you not to swerve, and they tell you not to swerve for two reasons. One, by swerving, you actually increase your risk of harming yourself by swerving into oncoming traffic, or a ditch or a pole. The other reason why they tell you not to swerve is that most times, if you stay on the road, you're not gonna hit the deer anyways. And so it's a reminder for investors that if you try and get out and go to cash, we all know that timing the market is almost impossible to do. But if you're going to try and get out and go to cash, you don't have to do the impossible almost just once. You have to do it twice.
That's right.
Because you have to know when's the right time to get out of the market and when's the right time to get back into the market. Another point, Scott, I want to make on this topic about if you feel nervous and you want to go to cash is we all have a bias towards action, right? Not you or me or anyone on this call, but we all have friends who say, don't just stand there, do something, right?
Right.
John Bogle, one of the best investors, has done more for the individual investors than almost anyone else from Vanguard, famously said, most times in crises, 99% of the time, people will say, the propensity will be, don't just stand there, do something, when the actual proper course is, don't do something, just stand there. Yeah. Or if you're going to do something beneficial, right? Yeah. And there's research to back this up. I wrote about this in December of last year. It's on our website under news, under visionarywealthadvisors.com, about the bias towards action. This research piece looked at 300 plus penalty kicks of elite soccer goalies. And it looked at whether or not the goalie was best off diving left, staying in the middle, or doing nothing, or jumping right to try and stop the penalty kick. And what they found was that the best position for the goalie to give them the best chance of stopping the ball was to stand right in the middle. And Scott, I'll put you on the spot here. Do you remember what percentage of the time the goalie actually stood in the middle or did nothing?
I want to say it was very, very small chance, if not zero.
Yeah, it was. It was 6% of the time. So the statistics show the best position for the goalie, these elite goalies, was to stand in the middle to do nothing, and they only did that 6% of the time. And remember, these elite soccer goalies, first of all, they know what they're doing. They're elite. This is an elite class of soccer league that they researched. Second of all, they have all the right incentives to want to stop the ball, right? Personal pride, help the team win, work for their next contract, work for the next endorsement, right?
Yeah.
All these reasons that they have plenty of incentive to want to do the right thing. And yet, despite that, their choice of diving left or right, 94% of the time, showed, well, why did they do that? Well, because if they dove, at least they could say, well, at least I tried, right?
Yeah.
And because they would feel, if they gave up a goal, they would feel better about trying than standing in the middle. So in other words, what these goalies did was they didn't make the decision that would optimize their chances of stopping the ball. They actually chose the decision that if they were going to fail, would cause them to feel less bad.
Yeah.
And so I think that message for investors is so important because we all have that propensity. We have to do something.
You're right.
But it's important to realize that sometimes doing nothing is actually the best strategy that you can have. And certainly when it comes to investing, when times like these, that advice certainly holds true.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Scott, the one final thing I'll share on this is that we talked a little bit earlier about stock markets. They usually almost always recover before the economy does.
Yeah.
So if you're an investor saying, I'm just going to wait for if we do go back down, and you say, I'm just going to wait until the economy recovers, let's look at the 08-09 recession as a great example. So the market bottomed. The S&P fell by 55% between, I think it was October of 07 to March of 09. The market bottomed on March 9th, 2009. We didn't end the recession until after the second quarter of 2009. So July 1st, if you will. Between March 9th of 2009 and July, the S&P was up by more than 30%, 36% in fact. Here's the thing. A recession is defined as 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP growth. So how do you know that you're out of a recession? You need a positive quarter of GDP growth to prove that you're out of the recession, right? So we didn't actually know that we're out of the recession until the end of the third quarter of 2009. Yeah. Between the bottom of March 9th till October 1st of 2009, the S&P was up 66%. Yeah. Now, those percentages are not important for this message because we have not fallen yet nearly that much. But what is important is that the stock market almost always recovers before the economy. So if you wait for the economy to improve to feel better about investing, there's a high chance you're going to lose out on a lot of opportunity.